AI generated and excited to kick off this AI chat with Ray from the Chamber and Mary from Grounded Logic.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our next edition of Chamber Chat. Thank you for joining us, and I'm pretty excited today, honestly, because we're revisiting a good friend of the Chamber. Mary McPheat is with us today with Grounded Logic, and Mary and I spent some time together about a year ago, and I'm going to ask her if she remembers the exact time, but it was pretty close to now, I think, that we had a discussion similar to this. But today, we're going to talk to Mary about some of the things that have changed. And oh my goodness, you talk about an industry with a lot of technology improvements and developments, and that's AI. And that's what we're going to be talking about today with Mary. And so welcome again. And I'm certainly looking forward to connecting with you and hearing what you have to say. And I think our members are going to be pretty interested in this one too, because no one is not impacted by this. In other words, everybody is impacted by this, where we are and where we're going.
Yes.
And again, welcome you and welcome to our listeners. Thank you for joining us for a few minutes here as we talk about all things Grounded Logic with Mary McPheat. So Mary, let's just go back down memory lane. About a year ago we sat here, huh?
Yes, we did. And first off, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate coming back and catching up because a lot has changed in the past year.
Well, we're going to tap into your mindset and your approach to find out kind of what has changed. But let's just start with you, Mary. What your world has changed, even without the technology. Just talk to us a little bit about what's going on for you.
Yeah, definitely. So I started Grounded Logic about a year ago today, all focused on organizational operations, and a huge pillar of that is generative AI and tech enablement. So I'm really working with organizations, small, medium-sized businesses, and large organizations from a department level on how can they be more efficient, how can we streamline their operations, and how can we use technology to make sure that they're running efficiently, that we're automating what we can, that we're getting the value out of everything that they're doing.
So that's a lot of tools. That's more than just AI. That's a full tool set. I didn't realize you were going quite that far and that deep then. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So focusing on that, really the operations layer, because that's what my history and background and experience is in. But then how does AI make that better and faster and stronger and quicker? And it is impacting every single business, as you even mentioned, even outside the business world, it's impacting our consumer lives as well. So yeah, the last year has been focused on, working with clients to achieve operational efficiencies, helping them prep to scale their business. Things are moving extremely fast. I've also had the opportunity to do speaking events. So I was down in Orlando at a healthcare conference in May talking about AI.
Nice.
And then I'll be in Minneapolis later this fall at another conference, again, focused on the use of generative AI.
And I have a feeling that's just the tip of the iceberg. You probably have a lot more speaking in your future, and so I hope you're comfortable with that.
Yes, I will tell you, I am getting more comfortable with it. Okay. It has been a year of learning experiences. It's been immensely fun. I've had, obviously, some challenges, learning experiences, but it's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing.
And so in the last year, you were employed somewhere else before, and now you're full-time. This is you. This is big commitment here.
Yeah, right? Big commitment. Still working with my previous employer, and actually a couple of the ones prior to that as well. And, doing what I have done and do, running operations. And now that AI is really just the double down of how does that impact, running organizational operations and making sure that they're as efficient as they can be.
So do most clients of yours or potential clients of yours realize they have a problem or that there are better ways to do things? Or is that part of the process, the discovery process?
I think they feel the pain, but they don't know what the problem is.
Okay.
I think operations is kind of the unsung hero. My career started in project management, and then I went up to operations, which essentially, if I were to simplify it, it's project managing the whole entire organization. So I think that when things are running well, people think they don't need it.
Right.
But the reason things are running well is because, they have it, like strong operations.
So is there usually one key area that you kind of focus on? You say, oh, it's personnel or it's time management or you're taking on too many projects. Like, do you find there's one common theme to all of that?
It depends on the organization. It depends on, their challenges, their pain points. But when you think operations, it could be anything. How are we bringing on new hires? How are we offboarding people? How are we bringing on new clients? How are we offboarding clients? How are we staffing our team? How are we, finding the appropriate, performance indicators, key performance indicators, KPIs for the organization? Okay. What's the utilization of our people? Like, you're looking at all of those. It's really like greasing the wheels or there's the well-oiled machine analogy. I tend to go with like a well-run baseball team. Like if you're a baseball fan.
Because of the human dynamic that's involved.
Definitely the human dynamic. And the thing that amazes me about a baseball team or a softball team is that ball, everyone has their positions. Yeah. And that ball can go anywhere on the field and everybody knows how to react and what to cover and where to go. So if the ball goes to the second baseman, we know who's covering second. And they just, that's what they do. It's not the second baseman, it's the shortstop's
got to come over
exactly.
And cover, right.
And everybody knows, but they all have their roles. So it's like when something goes wrong or a play happens, they're not figuring out what to do. They're reacting.
Well, hopefully they've practiced or they've been coached already.
And that's, I think, where the operations come into play. Like, know your role, know when things go off the rail, what are your resources, how do you, solve the problem, who do you reach out to, how do you escalate, and making sure that's all clear. So then it's not, reinventing the wheel or making the decision or talking about the solution every single time something happens.
So you've been at this a year, let's say, or thereabouts. How do you find your client, and have you defined who the sweet spot of your industry is, who it is that could most benefit from what you're bringing to all this?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey in that regard. My clients are mostly word of mouth, which I love and appreciate more than anything, just because of the connection and the they vouch for my work, which I appreciate. The sweet spot, I think I'm still working on. It's an interesting situation because everybody needs operations. My experience is mostly in services, so the delivery of B2B services. But when you think of the impact of artificial intelligence and my experience and expertise there, it impacts wide and far. So there's a little bit, I'm dabbling in a little other industries as well.
It's almost a curse to be as diverse and able as you are, because it's hard to just find one thing to specialize on.
It is hard. It is fun too, and having that breadth. I do a live webinar every 2 weeks, and I focus on the AI headlines and happenings of what happened by industry, and that is important for like my clients and the people that attend that, so they have the awareness, even if they aren't in every single industry, because it is impacting everything. And I think just as, even as humans and employees, like knowing what is happening out there, especially at this monumental time, is critical.
So tell me, walk me through one or two of a client experience where you've had some success. What have you done for them and how have they come out a better organization because you've been there?
Yeah, definitely. So we do some operational assessments. So one vein is really focused on where are we at, working with every single department, understanding how they're functioning, what their pain points are, and then understanding the organization's vision. And I always say that there's, you have the vision of the organization, and then you have like the execution, and you need to have them both in sync to achieve your vision or to achieve your strategy. And if there's no vision or there's no strategy, then we're all just doing work and probably like rowing in circles or something like that. Yeah. And then if there's like, you don't have the execution, then you have this grand vision that you'll never really cash in on, that you'll never really achieve. And that can be frustrating as employees as well. So where we come in is really that assessment of what's the strategy, what's the vision, how are we trying to get there? How do we align everything that we're doing on a daily basis to drive us towards achieving that goal and that vision. So we'll do the assessment, we'll work with the departments, and it could be, it's still like running smoothly, running efficiently, what makes sense. That's where grounded logic comes from. I'm driven primarily by what makes sense. And so what's logical. So if it doesn't, sometimes you'll go into organizations and they're like, well, this is how we do it. And you might say, why do you do it that way?
We always have.
Thank you. I didn't even have to. No, we didn't talk about that before. They'll say, because we always have. Yeah. And sometimes you do need an outside consultant to say,
there's a better way.
Yeah, or even that doesn't make sense.
Don't route everything through here, just
exactly.
Go directly.
Like you don't have to do that anymore. You can do what makes sense, and let's talk about what makes sense. Yeah. And it's really even tapping into the expertise. Like when you talk about experience across industries, like it's good to have that experience, but when you get into an organization, the best people, like resources, are those subject matter experts, the people that are doing it every single day. And I just ask the right questions and get to the solution and work with them on it. It's like, well, if we did it, can we do it this way? What if we did it that way? Like, this doesn't make sense. Do you see why?
Is that hard for you to say that to some people? Like, you're kind of doing this backwards. Here's a better way. Or
yeah, well, it's like you solve with them, and I think that you have better reception and adoption if it's something you both come up with. And the reality is, everybody wants to be efficient. Nobody wants to like do mundane tasks or like, copy and paste one thing from a spreadsheet to another like every single day. Like some of those. If you can automate it. Yeah, if you can automate it, if you can use generative AI as like a second opinion or to help you create it, they welcome that. Sure. And they appreciate that. And then they start to see once I get in there and it's like, oh, here's how an example of an automation can work, or here's an example of how you can use generative AI, it's like the floodgates open up, and they are like, this is what's painful in my day-to-day. This is what's challenging in my day-to-day. This is what feels like a waste of time in my day-to-day. And it'll be like, great, let's get in a room together. Let's figure out how we can fix that and how we can change it.
So
exactly.
Is your client base all local, or do you go national or international? I don't know.
They're all over the place.
Okay.
Yep, all over the U.S.
Good problem to have.
Yes, yeah, and in the remote world, it's a lot easier to achieve that too.
Well, you said every 2 weeks, I think you said, you're doing an update. And are you getting people attending that and asking good questions so you're kind of staying in touch with everybody that way?
Yeah, so it's just a webinar. So it's more of an output of information, and I organize it by industry. And it's 30 minutes fire hose of like what's happening. And what I find with organizations, and you hear employees say this all the time, is they're like, I'm doing my job. I don't have time to learn about AI. And it is hard to, and it's like a forcing mechanism to make yourself be able to do that. So even in an organization, if you have people sharing podcasts or sharing articles, the people on the receiving end still have to consume it. And it's still an hour podcast, or it's still a 30-minute read, or whatever the case may be. So this session is basically designed to say, don't worry about, like, I'm gonna listen to all of that for you, because that is what I do. Yeah. And I'm like, let's put it to good use from my standpoint too. And I'll just give you 30 minutes. I'll update you across the board, every industry. And then if something piques your interest, like certainly go down that path and learn more about it and kind of dive into it more. Or if you are in healthcare, like, great, now you have these other highlights that you know about. Or you are in education, great, now you know about these things too. And you can research beyond that. But it's kind of that like...
Well, it might be a trigger point to get them thinking about,
absolutely.
Here's a pain point, here's an approach that somebody else has taken.
Yes, and when they see the possibilities, I think a lot comes from cross-industry inspiration. So if you see the possibilities, if you're in education and you see what's happening in healthcare or whatever the case may be, that it does spark that. And I think one of the greatest limiting factors of how we are using generative AI and or automation is our own creativity. Being able to find those opportunities and think, oh, I should try this, or I should do that.
You're so positive and upbeat. I'm thrilled, and I can see as a consultant how you could really bring life to people's organization, because they don't know. They know something's not right. They don't know what it is. They don't know how to get there, but your kind of just calming demeanor says, well, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
So what has changed in AI? What do you feel are impactful things that our listeners might want to know about?
Yeah, so much has changed, and that is a nondescript response to your question. Yeah. But it is moving faster than probably anything ever has. And I could take it industry by industry and talk about how it has advanced in every single one of them. It's monumental changes. I mean, you can talk about just the generative part of it. So the quality of imagery that these systems can make is easily tenfold than it was last year. Really? The quality of audio, generative audio from cloning is way better. Video, we were talking earlier about VO3 that came out from Gemini. They just launched a model earlier this year, and it generates the video, it actually adds in audio now too, and it can create, a 30-second clip in like 5 minutes.
I love it. Yeah.
Which is, again, exponentially better than where we were at this time last year.
And would that impact every industry, do you think? Or
absolutely.
Yeah.
Every industry. I mean, it impacts every business in every industry. It is also impacting Hollywood. It is impacting, you think back to the strikes that we had, the writers and the actors, and their, likeness is on, I don't know, like on the table or on the stakes, they, if that can be cloned or generated based on the information that they have, which is like hours of video of a certain actor or hours of audio, like that can just be cloned. And so there are like new businesses cropping up that you can license, you know, famous voices from actors and stuff, but they obviously need to sign up for it. And it's just kind of it's a little wild out there.
It's the good, the bad, and the ugly, because all kinds of things could happen there. It sounds like. So
you can take that same example and do the bad actor side of it as well. So the same way that, you know, you can appropriately use audio cloning, it's audio cloning is used in scams too. So there's so many scams out there of like this interview, for example, will be out there. You only need a couple, you know, seconds of my voice to be able to clone my voice. And so now, like, what, not to give anyone ideas, but like, what can you do with that? And that's the problem when you think about, I mean, everyone's voice is out there for the most part. I mean, especially like CEOs, leaders of organizations, people in power.
Well, during the elections, I remember they were taking Biden's voice, I think, and saying he said such and such, and he had never said those things.
Yeah, they sent a robocall to the entire state of New Hampshire. And the people behind that got substantial fines in the millions of dollars. And then they have to come up with the laws behind it to regulate it. And so I know we touched on this briefly last time, but it's really the race of, you know, evolution of the technology and regulation of the technology, and how do you keep up with it?
It's not like our lawyers and our legal system don't have enough to deal with already, right? This just litigates it even further. So. Okay, so AI is often running and operational improvements are often running, and you're finding clients who embrace this and want to do better. We have about 350 members in the chamber. Which of them are not going to be impacted by this? What area of person is not?
They will all be impacted by it.
Okay.
They will all be impacted by it. And I would challenge anyone who thinks they won't. I'm happy to sit down with them and come up with some ways that they can use it, because I guarantee everyone.
Well, I am going to ask a little bit later on, but you know, we have a lot of independent. We have, like you, a single person organization, a single person, a law firm, or and all the way up to, you know, multiple hundreds of employees. So you're saying everybody along that stretch is going to be impacted in using this in some capacity.
They should be.
They should be,
if they want to flourish.
All right. Give me more specifics in the AI world. What else is happening? What else has changed?
Yeah. So I think it just changed in general, or how these businesses can use it.
Both are good answers. I mean, it's a lot of territory we have to cover. So.
I know. Well, so a couple features over the last couple of years that have rolled out that are interesting and critical and can be used by businesses is they've integrated search into these generative AI models. They have, all of them, for the most part, have what they call a deep research. So it does a deep analysis and it can give you like a research report. And the reason I highlight those two is because I think those are critical to small businesses. What generative AI brings to these small organizations is basically more with less. You can do more with less. And that's what we're all trying to do, what everyone's trying to do. So the ability for them to, say, use it to research a new market they want to enter, or use it to research a platform that they're assessing, that maybe they want to switch their payroll system. They can use it to do a deep research on, you know, what platforms they want to use. They can pair it with automation, and they can say, set up a monthly trigger where at the start of every month, it's going to generate X amount of social media ideas for me. Or maybe it's in-store promotions that they want to come up with. Then take it one step further and draft the promotional content for
that's right. I can actually do that for them.
Yeah.
So I thought about, and I'm setting you up, I'll tell you right up front. I was trying to think of one of my industries, one of our members, who could probably be the furthest removed from this. I'm going to ask you to figure out a way that they would use this. And so a farm. We have some nice farms that are part of our membership team. How could a farmer use AI to improve their world right now?
Yeah, good question.
Okay.
I think the easiest place to go to is like promotional. Like, how do you drive your customers? Who are your identifying your customers, understanding what that audience looks like. So you can use generative AI to say, here's my ideal client, my ideal customer. You can draft a persona for them. You can then use that persona, you know, articulating what they look like, what their pain points are. Then you can say, you know, knowing my business and knowing what this, you know, might resonate with this person, like what are some good communication points or messaging around that? Like how will the positives that I offer as a business owner, as a farmer, resonate with, resonate with my target audience? Maybe you're finding that those people aren't right clients, and so you need to find a new one. You could just go straight blank sheet and say, this is what I do, here are my services, here are my offerings, here where I'm located in Connecticut. what should I target?
Well
Where
done,
should I
Mary.
go?
I try to catch you off guard a little bit. And I was thinking like they have a CSA membership, let's say.
Yep, perfect.
And so they would take that, based on what you just said, they could profile who the CSA member ideal can, and then do a targeted marketing campaign to just them or something.
Absolutely. If you think, even my neighbor's CSA actually, and so we talk about it quite a bit. In that regard, what might resonate with, say, like a busy working mom, like maybe that's one of your targets. And the fact that it's, homegrown, and honing in on what those points are, writing the promotional material, finding the best place to find them and communicate to them. And how do you get them? Are there offers that they have? Is there a special, program that they run?
Yeah.
So all of that it'll give you ideas. It can help you draft the content. It can,
All right, you're hearing this, all of our membership out there. There's something for you in what Mary is saying. What scares you about all this? Where are we headed that's maybe a little bit concerning?
Yeah, I think the sheer power and the capabilities of it all both equally excites me and terrifies me. Using it for, obviously, the bad is concerning, like we talked about with the scams and the audio, and the fact that we're entering a world where it's harder to tell what is real and what is not real. And I always go back, we used to be able to say, seeing is
believing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now to
It's
just
not
be in a
anymore.
world where you question that is tough. And I presented to a board of ed at one point, and we talked a bit about like critical thinking skills. And someone had asked, like, does this mean that children don't need critical thinking skills anymore because it does everything? It can write essays, it can do whatever. And I was like, I think we need them now more than ever. Like, I think we could
For
have
discernment purposes. if nothing.
100% a critical thinking class, or like, I don't know,
Yeah.
parents could use it, adults could use it too, to be able to understand. And I talk to my children a lot, like, when you look at this, real or fake? What makes you think that? What are some cute clues? How do you look at it and how do you understand it? So not being able to tell what's real is terrifying to me, and what is fake. Just like the malicious use of it. And I think another, like my biggest fear that is not obvious is just the lack of like awareness and understanding. I don't know what has happened, but it's been like a silent exponential. Maybe it's because it's moving so fast, but I feel like the world's starting to wake up to the possibilities and the capabilities. But the tech leaders and the frontier models like haven't slowed down at all. Like, they are gangbusters trying to make this. I mean, there's like ongoing discussions about what's the first billion-dollar company that's run by one person. So they think that AI
Can do that for them.
can do that for them.
Wow.
And yet we're in a world where 90% of the people maybe have heard of ChatGPT, and if they have heard of it, it's probably focused on just how it can write an essay or like whatever the school concerns are, and not understanding the full breadth of what's possible. And I think that's just dangerous, even as a consumer, not knowing, like, if someone calls me and it sounds like my son, I at least have the knowledge and the wherewithal to be like, I don't know, like, let me ask a couple more questions or think about it. Whereas if you don't even know that technology exists,
You could get scammed pretty
Completely.
easily. I'm concerned. It's like putting active chainsaws in the hand of little kids as they go running around. It sounds like, I mean, you're painting that kind of a picture.
well, and this is another thing actually that I've done over the last year. I can't remember if this had happened before our last Connect, but there was a teen in Florida who started chatting with Character.ai, who is it's a persona-based generative AI platform. So I can go on and have conversations with characters, with Abraham Lincoln, with Bart Simpson. And this teen started, and it's in the school. It's not in the schools. It's at the school age system. I know of people in like middle school that know, like people are aware of it. The children are aware of it.
Okay.
And so he started forming this relationship with a character from the Game of Thrones or something along those lines. And it got intimate, it got deep, and he ultimately ended up taking his own life. And it really rocked me to my core, because it could be any of us as parents. And the tough part was that the mom was like, I had no idea that technology existed. I thought that he was a 14-year-old boy and was like, just kind of like being a little more reclusive and stuff like that. And so that actually triggered me to be like, this is insane. Like, we need to tell, this technology is in the hands of children. They know more about it, or they know more about, or they use it more, I should say, than parents, but they don't know the powers or the capabilities or like the concerns. Like that's not real. You know, you're not talking to something real at a point in their lives when they're
so impressionable.
100%, and they're trying to figure out what's right and wrong. And then there was a story in Pennsylvania where they used it to take 15-year-old boys, took pictures, face shots of like classmates, and turned them into like pornographic photos using generative AI, and they're being charged. And it's like they're at an age where they, like, again, right and wrong, like it's terrible, but they're also 50, which is tough.
So besides giving all these tools, we have to give the equipment and the parental guidance to say, be careful or be aware, and here's what's going on. So as parents and as businesses, we need to be aware of the safeguards and the guardrails that have to go up as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, just education and awareness.
All right, so I asked you the negative side of it, now the positive side. Sorry, but you know, the negative side is scary, you're right, and I see that in a new way. But the positive side, what excites you about this technology and where we're headed?
Yeah, the possibilities to be able to do more with less. I am definitely in the generalist camp. Like I have a strong, breadth of experience, and it just enables me to do so much more. And I think the possibilities are amazing, and it can make, you can do so much more, you can be more efficient, be more effective. But I think beyond that, like beyond the 1 year or 2 year window, it's the unknown is really tough.
So a couple of questions. You've termed ChatGPT. There are other tools like that are better, or it was like, is that generation 1 and we're on to generation 4 now? Can you walk me through some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are frontier models, which are Google makes Gemini, Anthropic makes Claude, and OpenAI makes ChatGPT. So those are all models that you can license, and they are large language models. So you can essentially, or multimodal, I should say, you can chat with them. They do imagery. They're working on getting video in there. But
and they have a search capability now, you're saying?
Search, deep research. But what we're going to see is that they're really making an experience for you. Like they want to get you in there and to keep you in there and allow you to do much more from there. And where the world of AI is going is interacting with other agents and other platforms. So I could be in ChatGPT and say, please write me, an email sequence in HubSpot and set it up and mail it, like create a list of these target people and create it all together. That I can prompt action, and that the agents will work with other platforms to get it done. So that's not here today. There's like entry level of that where you can connect it, you can start to connect the technologies, but it is certainly coming.
So if somebody wanted to create that CSA list and they wanted to mail it to all young moms in the Farmington Valley, and here's what I wanted to say, you're saying it could be automated to that point that once a month, all these moms are going to get an email, or they'll be reached out to somehow?
Yeah, so today we would still have to get the email, get the list. Yeah, but we can set up automations around, at the beginning of the month, drafting the copy as it pertains to the month we're in. Like maybe it's a Mother's Day special in May, and maybe in June it's like the end of school. So automating the drafting of that. And then you would probably have to help get it over, like port it into the system and create the email. That's today. And then you can schedule and send it and stuff like that. But in the future, we would get to a world where we could, make the prompt, here's the email I want to write. Now create the email in the system for me.
Right. And then send it out. And here we go. Then you just sit back and collect all the money, right?
Yeah, right.
No, not exactly.
Hopefully.
Are there a lot of people doing what you're doing right now as, say, industry consultants? Is that a growing trend?
It is AI first and forward, I feel like, is a growing trend. So education on AI, training on AI. What I think differentiates what I'm doing is it's operations for me, because I think that, in 5 to 7 years, AI is going to be so ingrained in what we do that you're not going to need you don't need an AI company. It's like if someone came today and tried to sell you a how to use email within your organization, and you're like,
you're past that, right?
Yeah, we all know how to use email. So I position myself, and I always think about it through the lens of making operations run smoothly,
right.
Prepping organizations to scale, really dialing it in for those founders that are growing, but they want to step out of the day-to-day operations and have the organization run without them.
Would this be something that we should be teaching more in schools? You have young children, what should they be learning in their day-to-day education system that is impacting all this?
Yeah, wild question, partially loaded, because I do talk to my kids about it all the time, and I think there's so much controversy over what they should be learning in school and how they should be learning it. I reserve the age limit. Like, my kids are probably a little young for me to be talking about it, but like, I live and breathe it every single day, so like, I appreciate that they're aware of it and like know the risks and stuff. But I think you go back to like the critical thinking skills and even like delegation skills or giving feedback. Like, when you think about prompting these systems, you're giving it feedback. Or if you want a certain output, you're delegating it to them. Make sure you give the appropriate information. Make sure you give the examples. Make sure you give, like, these are all critical things that you need to give this system to give it back. So maybe that's how we shift.
So should we have courses in 3rd grade that start this process, I guess? Or I don't know what point it starts.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it's those critical problem solving, critical thinking, like even delegation, communication, so many, like, I don't know if you want to call them soft skills, but like to be able to navigate the world.
We had a conversation, and might have been a year ago, about executive functioning skills.
Yes.
And that ties into all this too, because a lot of children, younger children, are not being taught any executive functioning skills. They've somehow pushed that off of their learning criteria.
Yes.
But it seems like this would require, to use this well, you also have to have the executive functioning skills.
Amazing connection, and I couldn't agree more.
Okay.
It is almost like classes on executive functioning skills.
For adults too, because there's a few that got all the way through high school and college
100%.
having all that.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Should people consider this as a career, the kind of AI modeling that you're doing? And I know you're specific to operations, or maybe general to operations, but should it be something that, that's the next major in the college world?
Yeah, so that's a tough one because I don't know the runway on it. But I do know that there are colleges that are coming out with degrees right now that are focused on industry and X, they call it. So it could be like liberal arts and AI, and they learn about the computer science of it, the algorithms and the capabilities of generative AI and artificial intelligence, and then they pair it with a specific industry. So I think it's important. The question is, like, how long is that going to be?
And what it would look like, because each college is going to define it themselves, probably.
Yes.
So a couple more, do you have more time?
Absolutely,
a couple more questions?
yeah.
I've got a couple more for you still. Development-wise, where are these things going? What should we be looking out for, kind of?
Yeah, so agents, everyone said this is the year of the agents, which I don't disagree with them. So agents are systems that can autonomously function on their own. So they can go off and, like, even the deep research example is a bit of like an agent. So I give it a task, it goes, it scours the internet, it looks for sources, it evaluates them, it writes a report. So that's a kind of a multi-step process that they do autonomously, the system does autonomously. So furthering that, there are a couple examples of it now. Everybody out there is using, like, everyone slaps agents on everything. Some of them.
When you say everyone, remember there's some old folks here who don't use all this on an everyday basis. Okay?
Yes, so
a lot of people.
Yeah, well, like tech companies, I should say.
Okay.
So, fill in the blank tech company is like, oh, we have agents for you. Here are agents. Let me sell you agents. And when you get into them, they're probably like a wrapper around like a ChatGPT. So we're starting to get to the world where they can function autonomously. We're pairing them with automation, which we talked about, which kind of creates a makeshift agent. And then where they're going is the ability to connect, as we talked about previously, like to connect to the other systems to allow them to take action in other platforms. So if you're on a Dropbox for your file share, or you use HubSpot for your sales lead gen, that you could prompt it in your like ChatGPT or in your Claude or your Gemini to do something, and that it could connect to those systems and do it for you.
So maybe this isn't connected at all, or maybe it is. Like the self-driving cars, are they agents, or are they some subset of that? Or how are they getting all the information, continually update as they're driving and make those connections?
Yeah, so definitely artificial intelligence. And so one section I cover in my session every 2 weeks is robotics, and so it kind of falls within that world.
Okay.
But yeah, the general premise of how these systems work are algorithms that are run against an immense amount of data at a speed far greater than we've ever had experience with. That's why those data centers are so critical, because they're running it so fast against those that, like, we haven't really witnessed that before. So the self-driving cars, they have cameras all around them. They're taking in all the data and all the information, and they're learning from all of the behaviors. If you take Tesla, for example, think of all the Teslas that are on the road and all the information that Tesla has and the ability to then learn from that. Like, what's the appropriate way to stop? What happens when this, and using that information. So the more data you have, the more you can learn from it. These systems can learn from it, and then
Fascinating.
they can, and they have some other things like LiDAR systems and specific, which I don't know the details of, but specifics of, making those systems run. But humanoid robotics is coming. I mean, they're working in BMW plants in South Carolina right now.
A little bit scary, a little bit encouraging, but just knowing about it is pretty important too, it sounds like. Okay, so we have members. I've mentioned we have small ones. We have the individual proprietor. We have a small shop owner. We have the grocery stores, the larger Ensign Bigford, the bigger organizations as well. And you've said already this is going to impact all of them. So what should they be embracing? How should we as the chamber help them, support them, encourage them? What can I say to them?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I always go back to learning and education. So aware of the possibilities, understanding what the capabilities are and where it's headed. So understanding. Also, once they have that understanding, like the opportunity to find out, work with someone or work with the chamber, work with a team that can be like, all right, where are the opportunities? How can we dive into like optimizing? Where can I use it? Like, I know what it can do. Could it be here? How can we implement it here? Can we do a custom, chat for this example and start identifying those opportunities? I think the hardest thing is the behavioral change. And it's hard to change, and people don't have the time to change, and they don't have the time to learn, and they don't have the time to try, like trial and error, because it's not all going to be perfect to start.
Let me push back just a little bit, because the last interview I did here was a couple of folks from our community, women who own their own businesses, and they have a retail mindset, but they're very open to try things, and they know time is a critical commodity, but they also see the value in this kind of thing. So are there like templates that we could create to direct them to, or as a chamber, are there things we could do that would make their world a better place because of this?
Yeah, I think we can definitely pull something together. And I think that's great that they are open to that stuff, because a lot...
Well, they see it as essential. I mean, it's not even like, do I want to? It's like, I have to do this to survive.
I do agree with that. Okay. I agree with that.
But I'm encouraged that they have that mindset of, this isn't a maybe, it's a just, how do I get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I think the session I'm doing this fall is actually about like custom GPTs, and we're going to go through and say, like, identify opportunities, and how can you identify things that are good candidates for this, and kind of build it out from there. And so a template like that, which once I pull that all together, we can certainly share with you guys, and share with the businesses as well.
What didn't I ask you? Tell me more. What specifics do you want to talk about? Things that you've done, that you've learned, or out of directions you want to go?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we covered quite a bit. It was great to chat, and I love obviously talking about all things AI and operations. And
well, you bring a very encouraging, disarming viewpoint to all this, which I'm always excited about, because I think you got to remember there are generational issues here. If you didn't grow up with computers, just to even be in that world, and then to have email, and then to have all the kind of capabilities, never mind all the fear factors, but all the positive things that can happen. And you just introduce it in a way like, this is good, we'll get there, we'll figure it out. So thank you for your attitude and approach towards it. Any plugs we should make for Grounded Logic? What else you have coming up next that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I have my webinar every other week. It's called the AI Beat, so you can learn about that.
Can anyone register for that in
You
advance?
can find about it on the website. Okay. I do a subscription base, but I'm happy to extend free trials to people. I think there is one on there on the individual, so we can do that. And then my conferences this fall are kind of sporadic and all over the U.S., but it'll be...
And what kind of topic do they ask you to speak about when you go to those?
Yeah, so the one earlier this year was on specifically AI agents and in marketing. So how can you leverage that in the healthcare space? And then the one this fall is going to be for fractional professionals. So custom GPTs and how they can use those and leverage there in their day-to-day work.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you might even have some examples of this later on for us or for the station here to work through?
Yeah, I want to be able to send some good demos and some examples of everything we talked about today, because I think being able to see it in action is really going to give context.
Yeah, proof in the pudding.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, Mary, again, I thank you for your time, your ability, your expertise, and kind of break it down to a level we can all, take away something from it anyway. So,
well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and thanks so much for having me.
All right. And to our members, thank you for listening in. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a good day.
To continue our integration of AI capabilities into this episode, this is an AI cloned voice. Signing off. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you found it insightful and educational.
For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education, and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government
come together.